I'm recording. Cool. All right, we're recording. Hi, guys. I am so stoked. We've got some super heavy hitters here. Several from 2023 and one from 2024. So I don't know what year Lookout was in, but we're waiting for him to enter. And meanwhile, Skeletor is going to start our introductions.
Hey everybody, I am Skeletor. I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail in 2023 as a thru hiker from Campo all the way into Manning Park and walked into the Sierra Range on June 8th or June 7th, somewhere in that range. I forgot the exact day. But yeah, early June.
All right, runner.
Yeah, so I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail in 2025. I started March 24th and finished in Campo and finished at the border and then had to go back, of course, since you can't really go into Canada now. Yeah, that's bad, but I finished late July of last year. So yeah.
Nice. And then I still don't know which one is Mario and which one is Drillbit. So I guess I figure it out right now. Mario?
That's me. I'm Mario. Um, he's Quincy, uh, and we entered the Sierra, I think, early June, late May, and we finished early July.
Wow. And Drillbit.
Yeah, I'm Drillbit, so now you know. And yeah, I think we finished like it was July it was either July 1st or July 4th. I don't remember, but it was like one of those days where I think it was July 4th. I feel like it was July 4th because I remember the people we were hiking with, they were like, "Oh yeah, now we can." They were Americans and they're like, "Oh, we can finally celebrate and stuff." So yeah.
You finished the trail July 4th or the Sierra July 4th?
No, the Sierra.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty fantastic year. That was super memorable.
Where do we call the finish? Drillbit, when you say I finished the Sierra on July 4th, what's your are you in South Lake Tahoe or Wilderness or like what's the I finished
Oh,
right?
yeah, it was just Kennedy Meadow North.
Yeah. There's there's uh there's many definitions for where the Sierra ends. I think officially it's somewhere between Quincy and Chester, isn't it? It's like a little south
There's
of Belden.
there's an awesome little sign on the trail that says leaving the Sierra.
Yeah,
And then on the other side of the sign, it says entering the Cascades.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just it was unexpected. It wasn't listed on Far Out, and I didn't expect to see it, and it kind of brought like a little bit of tears to my eyes because the Cascades are home. The Sierra was so fun, and I was like, wow, I didn't expect this. It was so cool.
So anyway, what I wanted to do by getting you guys together was to support the 2026 hikers. And I wanted you guys specifically because you guys had a lot of risk mitigation issues. And not only that, but you guys also witnessed a whole bunch of other hikers who are also dealing with risk mitigation issues. So one of the things I wanted to let other hikers know is like none of us are super people. We're not wearing capes when we go in. So we kind of learned as we progressed through. And and now you guys are my superheroes, but when you guys were entering in, you guys had the same butterflies that everybody else does, especially going in on the years that you guys went into. So, if anyone could start out with like what was like um the one thing where you literally had to pause and go, okay, I guess I'm doing it. I'm in it now, and you pretty much pulled the trigger and you're going through and kind of walk us through that thought process of um, pulling that trigger and heading into the Sierra.
So I could start. I got to KMS May 1st, or a bit before May 1st, and headed into Sierra May 1st. And I was on a pretty strict time constraint. I had to be back here in Norway before August. So I just kind of had to go, and I wanted to finish the whole trail. So what was really important for me was to have a group of hikers to walk into. We were a group of about 10 international hikers heading into the Sierra at the same time, and we were the third group going into the Sierra. So we had some information, but not a lot. And there was a snowstorm coming in a week. So we really just had to try and pull the trigger and go for it then, and hoping to beat the storm before it really came in, and get the first stretch into Bishop done. And that went well, but it was some sketchy moments for someone who didn't have too much winter experience already.
Yeah, I think it was similar with me and Mario, where because when we arrived at KMS, we actually went back to San Jacinto first to do San Jacinto because we couldn't do that section before. And then when we got back to KMS, we're like, okay, now it seems like there's a definitely one group that went through already. And then I don't know if they went through they went into Bishop already. So the first group went into Bishop, and we're like, okay, so somebody did it. And then there was gonna also be a storm, and then it was just us two at that time. And then we're like, okay, we gotta leave the next day, otherwise we're just gonna have to wait out the storm, and then it's gonna delay everything even more. So yeah, it was also like a storm thing, and then we just had to do it.
And there was there was so much drama around the Sierra section in 2023. Um, but I have a fair bit of experience in those conditions. So there wasn't any hesitation at all, like on my part. I remember, the month leading up to starting, in the months leading up going to Campo, I was looking at the snowpack and I was excited. It was like I was like, man, this is exactly, I couldn't have wished for a better year. This is exactly what I want. I have these skills and I have these, I have these equipment and I'm so excited. And I ran through the desert as fast as I could because I was just so excited to walk into the Sierra. And I was really confused by all the drama that was going on and how dangerous it was and all of that good stuff. So I didn't really have any hesitation. I actually had just more excitement to be out there and see those things and be in those conditions and see it in a way that I feel like not many people actually get to see, which was really nice.
And Maro, did you have any hesitations going in, or did you just go full on, full on throttle in?
Yeah, I feel like we both Drillbit and we really want to just try it out. And if it wasn't something we are able to do, then we would just exit at the next point. But yeah, as we went through it, we felt confident that we could go through, so we just pushed through.
I'm gonna have to plug in your guys' Instagrams because I was watching you guys' Instagrams as you proceeded, and I was like, oh my God, some of the water crossings and some of the log crossings that you guys were going through was pretty crazy. Um, but so was there any part of um, what kind of preparations did you guys do for, and then anyone can chip in, but what kind of preparations did you guys do actively prior to entering the Sierra, or actually any crux move that you had? How did you confidently go into those situations where it's like, okay, this is a river crossing, I'm going to do it now? But you didn't do that blind. blindfolded. You did that with preparation in mind.
So I feel like because then during our year, so when they say the trail provides, I feel like it really does. Because then I feel like if you, because then I think it was at Mount Laguna, there was already a snowstorm. And then so that was the first snowstorm for everybody. So early on, we already encountered a lot of snow. So it was like, but it wasn't like dumped on us. It wasn't like as deep as the Sierra. So I felt like as we went through the trail, we already kind of adapted to what the Sierra was going to be like. And then so even at other points, like at um Big Bear, I believe, like around that area, um, our tramley actually tried to, I think we had ice axes at that point. I don't even remember anymore, but we tried to like we would like pretend to like slide off the side and like try to save ourselves, and so we were like practicing um and yeah, so all of that kind of helped. And then also just we also had to melt water once, like not to practice because we actually didn't have water. So I felt like a lot of the things that we had to do in the Sierra, we already kind of tested it out for like a few days at a time because it would just be cold and snowy a few days at a time, and then it'll get like nice again. Um, so it wasn't like we were dumped in the Sierra. And even in the Sierra at KMS, it was very gradual. Because our first section, we met up with a tramline member at Lone Pine, and that's where you helped us resupply, Jay. So thanks. And then, so even that first section, it wasn't like it was suddenly like it was snowy, but it was like very gradual. So it wasn't, and even the water crossing, I felt like it was very gradual because it was towards the end when we had a lot of experience like with what some water crossings in the desert section already. Like I think it was Deep Creek or something. That was the deepest one for us. And yeah, so the trail really provides.
Runner.
Yeah, so I had no experience. I'd never touched an ice axe before, even though I'm from Norway. So, but as Drillbit said, it's very gradual when you come out from Kemas. So, for us at least, there wasn't snow in the first miles or the first day, and we walked up to into snow the first day at the end. So we did a fair bit of training of self-rest the first day and did that until we felt secure enough to proceed. But yeah, it's a gradual thing. I think you get used to it once you get into it more, but it's important to have people around you with a good plan. So we were prepared to go into Bishop, and we had way too much food going out of KMS. But we had a plan to go into Lone Pine if the weather was too bad. We had a group in front of us with one of the biggest influencers of last year's trail, who actually went out in Lone Pine after attempting Whitney and failing to do so. So it was definitely possible to take a shortcut out if you felt it being too much. But also the river crossings weren't really that big for us in the beginning. So once you got experience, I got used to it by doing smaller river crossings, and then the proper river crossings came later, and then it just felt like a gradual step, which was manageable. So there wasn't really that bad. There was a couple of times we had to walk around some parts, but it felt manageable enough, at least for the most part.
And then Mario, did you have anything to add as far as going into the Sierra and preparing?
I will say during the entire time while we were going through the Sierra, there was this group that was just like a few days in front of us that we kept in touch with very closely, and they constantly shared the conditions that was just ahead of us to us whenever they got into town. So that really helped Drillbit and I to kind of know about any routes that they took that was different than the actual PCT trail, or how they mitigated um, like what kind of tactics they took to do some river crossings or to kind of go off route to PCT, maybe on a safer route. So yeah, their advice helped us, and so we decided to do the same to people for people behind us so that they can get that kind of information as well.
Yeah, so sweet. I'm gonna have to add that on. Um, I just wanted Skeletor to tell me more about this story because he initiated a story where and without outing the actual hikers, but there were a couple of hikers that he met that were carrying ice axes like they were carrying hammers, pretty much just by the handle, just
Oh,
walking
we'll
through the
oh,
sea.
oh we'll out them because they're famous and they're uh,
Uh-oh.
the first thing I'll say is I've been swinging an ice axe for a long time, and before I started the PCT, I someone had passed me a series of informational videos on YouTube. I think they got it from either the Trek or maybe Halfway Anywhere. I'm not really sure where it was, but they're very, very popular in the PCT lore. And I was very like shaking my head like I'm gonna watch these videos, and I don't know who this Yahoo is, but they are not gonna help at all. I watched those videos and they were spot on. And I wish I had the links to tell everybody because it was maybe half an hour or 45 minutes of YouTube education. And they were dead on. They were spot on. It's everything you need to learn how to use an ice axe on the PCT. They were very, very, very good. So I'll try to follow up, Jay,
Yeah,
and find those
absolutely.
you, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty common and pretty popular. Um, I got to the base of Forester Pass and the Codgers were there. Ever seen the Codgers YouTube videos? They have tons of followers. They're two retired gentlemen in their 60s. Um, and they had done the Appalachian Trail a couple of years before. And they got to the base of Forester Pass with ice axes in their hands. And I said to them, Are you going up? And they said, We were thinking about it. And I said, Are you going back? And they said, We were thinking about that too. And I said, do you know how to use that thing? And and, and they said, Absolutely not. And I said, I'll show you. And right there in real time at Forester Pass, I taught both of the codgers how to swing an ice axe, got them up and over Forester Pass and all the way into Bishop. And we're friends to this day. They're fantastic, amazing people. Um,
Yeah.
the codgers are Rumbles and No Filter. And No Filter is named not because he doesn't use a water filter, but because he has no filter on his mouth. Whoever they're amazing people, and we learned right there in real time how to use an ice axe, not just for self-arrest, but how to cut steps and how to keep yourself, on the side of the mountain in those really snowy conditions.
And I think my addition to that story was that I think the onus is on the more experienced PCT hikers to help out the lesser experienced PCT hikers, especially if you see a lesser experienced PCT hiker entering into a situation where they could get into more trouble. And so I think there is a little bit of onus upon us. I certainly don't want to include the fear mongering and the person who's very pushy about their opinions or their ideas. I think we as adults can weed out those people pretty quickly. Um, but in any case,
Jay, I would second that and say that if you do have that experience, it's important to pass it on. It's not complicated. It's maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of conversation with the axe in your hand. And I posted up at KMS for 2 days. Those were my first 2 zeros on trail. And at 8, 12, 2, and 6 p.m. every day, 4 times a day for both those days, I taught anyone that wanted to learn and sit on the balcony right there how to use an ice axe and how to use it. And afterwards, I got texts and emails and you know notifications from people that were like, "Dude, I cannot believe how easy this was." And 45 minutes later, I'm not going to say you saved my life, but you made it so much easier. Now I know how to use this thing, and it's so fun.
yeah. Um, I just wanted to talk about a more difficult topic to talk about. What happens when plan A isn't working and you have to go to plan B? Um, in when do you pull that trigger? Because I always have this problem with any of my adventures. I am not a through hiker, and I've never through hiked the PCT, even though I do know a little, I can fake it a lot. But but many times in my own adventures, I've had to go from plan A and then go to plan B, and then unfortunately, all the consequences of plan B all the way to plan J have like horrible ends to it. So I have this plan A, which is great, and then I can't do it anymore. So I have this plan B, which isn't that great if you consider the path plan B is going to take me to. So how does when you're on trail and you're trying to um, succeed in your plan A and you know you can't do it. In other words, I know that Mario and Drillbit, I mean, to get to your resupply at Lee Vining, you had to decide whether to hike out 17 miles and then hike back in 17 miles because that Tioga Road was closed. Um, and so you had to figure out what your resupply was. And I just couldn't imagine being entering in Yosemite in record snow like you guys were and having to decide how are we going to get more food and I mean what do we do now kind of thing. And then to like go, okay, we got food, now we're going to go back in and go to this next section. um what do you girls do it?
I feel like if it's specifically that section, um I remember because then entering from Mammoth, I believe, and then exiting Lee Vining, we didn't want to go all the way through to Kennedy Meadow North because then we would have to carry because we were already planning on carrying 2 extra days worth of food because we would because the group that went in prior us, they already had to hike up and down like the river in order to cross it. So that was already a lot of extra miles. So then we didn't know because then the snow was melting so fast already, we didn't know if we would have to hike even further than them just to find the spot. And then so we didn't want to be stuck there with no food and having to like press like Garmin because we have no food or something. So then we were like, okay, let's just carry 2 extra days. And then so because we carry 2 extra days, then going all the way to um, Kenny Middle North was just too far for us to carry so many days worth of food. And then so hiking out at Lee Vining, it was one whole day, but then that was better to for us to like break it up versus going all the way because I don't think we would have like it would have been hell like the first like 3 days if we carried all that food.
Yeah, I think we also, yeah, so like we really analyzed, I guess, our capabilities in that situation and knowing how much we'd be able to carry and keeping in mind like the pace that we'd be able to keep up if we carried like too much in our packs. Um, and also coincidentally, when we were hiking out to Lee Vining, I sprained my ankle like the day before, so it was perfect timing for us.
I love that Mike Tyson quote. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I would say um planning can be your enemy, not your friend, especially when you're walking into the Sierra. I don't look at the plans as a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. I look at the plans as I could do any one of these three things or these four things. I should be prepared to do any one of these four things and change my mind along the way because I sprained my ankle or because I ran out of food or because I was over it or whatever, I got sick, whatever it was. Um, so loosely planning and being prepared for multiple plans is the call when walking in, especially when walking into something like the Sierra and high snowpack like that. Um, it's not the time to count weight, right? Sure, you don't want to walk in with a 60-pound bag. That's just stupid. But like, throw the extra pound or two in there. Make sure you have a couple of extra things. It's super, super, super helpful. When I walked into the Sierra, I had a 40-pound bag. And when I walked through the desert, I had like an 11-pound bag. So I was not messing around. I just wanted to be like, I don't care. I'll walk a little bit slower. And if I have to, I'll stay a little bit longer, but I want to have everything I need.
Oh, you're on mute.
Runner, any distinct decision making where you decided I'm gonna not stick to this plan, but go to a different avenue?
Well, I was pretty lucky. Like with the conditions, we actually had to split up the group of international hikers I started from before even reaching Forest to Pass. So that was a bit of planning when you were in the middle of it. We had one in our family who got a pretty serious altitude sickness and had to take some extra days where you have to look at everyone's food weight, how much energy people have. So someone who had a bit less energy and someone who had a bit more ended up walking together and taking an extra day or
Oh,
two to get into Forester, while some other of us ended up walking fast all the way into it. But outside of that, we were in general pretty lucky. We always carried extra food, especially in the beginning, just to be sure that if some extra snowstorm comes in and you have to stay in your tent for 2 days, you will actually be able to sustain yourself. But except from that, we were pretty lucky, like thinking about it.
nice. And then there was a little bit of drama going on. And it was coincidental that I was actually supporting all three hikers. Mario and Drillbit were one of the hikers, and then a third hiker joined their tramily for a bit of the Sierra. And I only found out about it a little bit afterwards. But but well, I guess one of you guys can tell us what happened.
So it was so the well, I don't want to say who that person is, but they were with us from day 2 or 3,
In the
actually.
Sierra.
Like no, from like the
Oh,
very
from
beginning.
Campo. Okay.
Yeah. And then or we met them on day 2, and then we just kind of like I think we officially started hiking together after Julian. And then, so all the way there, even when we went back for San Jacinto, and then the only part we didn't hike together was from KMS to Lone Pine. And then, so we met up again in Lone Pine, and then we continued on together from there until when we exited at Mammoth. And then we like at first Mario and I we wanted like even at Lone Pine we were trying to gather more people to go in because then we felt like oh that's gonna be more of the like intense part of the Sierra with all the higher altitude and all of that stuff. Like Lone Pine was just kind of like a teaser. And then so we actually found 2 other people that we have never hiked with, and then they were coincidentally just in Lone Pine. And then so we all went in together. And then but I think the pace for like everybody was just like we were all over the place. And then for me, I was thinking like, okay, we probably, since we went in together, we should probably get out together. And then the pl so when we so 2 of them that we didn't really that we only met in Lone Pine, they also met each other in Lone Pine. They decided to exit earlier. Oh my gosh, I don't even remember where. Maybe Mario remembers. And then, but we went all the way to, I think they exit at Bishop Pass, but I think exited, we exited. Oh my gosh, I don't even remember the names anymore. It's so bad. I need to write these things down. So
It
Mario
was
would probably
after
remember.
Whitney. It was
Oh, they,
after Whitney, whatever
So
the
that would
exit
be
is.
Kearsarge passes after
Yeah.
Whitney.
oh, okay. So they exit at Kearsarge while we exit at Bishop, right? Do we exit at Bishop? Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then So after they exit at Kearsarge, we're like, okay, so it's just me and Mario and then our family member from the very beginning. Okay, fine, whatever. And then so it was just us three going all the way to Bishop. And then, okay, fine. And then we did another section together. And then that was the section with a lot of thunderstorms. There were six thunderstorms. And then so at the same day, like in the same day, sometimes there were two thunderstorms, and then we're like, oh shit, should we like just stop? And then we would stop, and then the sky would kind of clear. But then like sometimes we would like run out of food. Well, we didn't run out of food, but we would notice that if we don't keep going, then we will run out of food. So it's kind of like then we would have to keep going. And then we would hike like really early in the morning, like at 1 or 2 a.m. And then, but 1 or 2 a.m. is, we feel like it's the time to like hustle because that's when the snow is like the hardest, like as in like it's hard. So then it's
Hmm.
easy to walk on. And then and it's also the coldest. And then, okay, I personally found that after I eat like a granola bar or whatever, then I'm like walking, like I started to freeze, like I started to get really cold because of the pace that we were hiking at. And then so in order for me to not get that cold, I would either have to walk faster or eat more food. And I don't want to carry more food so I can eat more food. So I would need to walk faster, but we can't walk faster when the pace of the group, which is the other person, cannot like go at that pace. And then there were also times where, because in the Sierra, to be honest, like it's not like I'm a mountaineer with like 10, 20 years of experience or something. So then I feel like I need to know my own capabilities and like how I can go up and down these passes. And same with Mario, like I trust her enough to know that she is capable herself to go up and down these passes. And then one thing that the other family member I felt like made me feel like a little nervous was they would ask us like how to get down, or like they were too scared to get down, or like how to climb up something. And then I just didn't have the energy when it's like 3 in the morning and it's dark and I'm cold and hungry to tell somebody step by step how to go up like a pass. And then and then all these other decisions afterwards where like we encounter storms, and we were actually stranded on like the side of a mountain just because of a decision, a poor decision that was made. And then the person wanted to just keep going, and I was like, I'm literally gonna fall. And so yeah, it was just in a snowstorm, so then we had to just kind of like dig out like a little bit so we can just pitch our tent there and just stay until like the snowstorm was over. And then yeah, and then after that, for me, I was thinking, okay, never again, like nothing against the person, but just like for my own safety, because I feel like literally in that, especially in the Sierra, like nobody is gonna, unless you press like your Garmin, like nobody's gonna come and save you. We only saw like one other person that whole time, that whole stretch. So just because of like survival wise, I felt like I need to make sure like the people that I go with, like they can fend for themselves in like certain situations. And then so that's why Mario and I decided that it was just going to be us to the next section. And then that went really bad for the friendship.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, it's your safety that you have to consider. And so, and people have to grow, and that's part of growing is to realize that I'm not as capable as other people, and people don't want me around, so I've got to do this on my own. And that hiker did find other avenues, and it was a very successful trip for that hiker, because I was coincidentally supporting that hiker at the same time. However, what I wanted to talk a little bit more was that uncomfortable feeling that you have to go through to approach a difficult subject, which literally is kicking someone out of your tramily kind of thing, which I think is a valuable lesson for a lot of people that is rarely discussed, certainly not discussed in a setting like this. Um, so. I know that's difficult, but what made you decide to pull that trigger? I mean, it sounds like safety was part of the issue, um, but in any case, you still have to like, all right, we got to sit down, we got to do this, and you have to have that hard talk. So, what led up to it, or what were you feeling and thinking when you went to that?
So I think I could sense while like leading up to it, like I could sense Drillbit's frustration about kind of the pace of our hiking group and like the sometimes like the dangerous situations we were put in because of like pacing issues or like group decision making issues. And so when we got to Mammoth, which is the town where our tramway like kind of broke off, like Drillbit and I decided to talk privately with each other. And I think the thing that we discussed the most, or like the main point that we focused on, was that Drillbit and I, we decided to hike the trail together, like start together and end together. That was the plan. And so that was the goal of our hike to, finish the PCT, us two together. And so I feel like at the end of the day, people have to remember that it is like you hike your own hike. Like when you start the trail, uh, on your own, you kind of like, yes, you're going to meet amazing people along the way, but there shouldn't be an expectation that people that you meet, they're like bound to you, like, at any time, because everyone has their own goals for the hike. Like it's a given that there's a possibility that they have to change their plans, or, there's certain decisions they have to make so that they could reach their personal goal of the hike. Um, yeah, and so we we met up with our our third family member and spoke with them, and it was a difficult talk, but we tried to help them out with like resources or other possibilities they could think about. And we really tried to explain like our side of the story of, how we were feeling in terms of being able to accomplish our goals. Like we were on a visa because we're Canadian. So there was also a timing issue about, being able to pace properly in order to finish before our 6-month visa was over. Uh, and, just safety wise and all those things.
I love this story because it's something that no one prepares for when the social aspects of walking into the PCT. So anyone listening to this broadcast should have a plan ahead of time on both ends of the spectrum. Um, this is an aspect of hike your own hike that we don't really talk about too much. But as you prepare and plan for the PCT, know what you're going to do now. Think about it ahead of time. How am I going to ask someone to leave my trampoline? And what's going to happen when someone asks me to leave their trampoline? Because you have to be prepared socially to do those things both ways. And the advice that I would give is give it plenty of time, right? If you're hiking with someone and you kind of think they're not a good fit for speed or for safety or just for social reasons or whatever, and you've got a stopping point in the next day or two, tell them now. Don't wait for the stopping point. Say, hey, I think when we get to Sierra City in 2 days, so and so and I, we're gonna go our separate ways because we just want to do the rest of it together. Whatever the reason is, like give them plenty of time so that they have time to process and come up with a plan B for themselves. Maybe find new people to walk with or process it in their mind that they're going to walk by themselves for, a week or two, whatever it is. Um, but that's something to prepare for. And it goes back to something I wanted to say earlier about having a plan A, B, and C. As you prepare for the PCT, don't don't visualize all of the good things. Don't visualize finishing at the end and being happy. Don't visualize crushing your way through the Sierra. Take some time as well to visualize what's going to happen when I'm 7 days off pace. What am I going to do? How am I going to feel? What should I be thinking? How can I get back? Or what's going to happen when I have a trampoline and I don't like them? How am I going to like walk through some of the negative parts of the PCT as well so that when it actually happens, you're like, oh, I've already thought about this. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this instead. Right. So I think that's an important part of the visualization as well that no one really prepares you for.
Runner, do you have anything to add? Any moments where
Yeah, so I think in the desert section, you kind of get the first in, or very few people who's doing a through for the first time have been in any kind of relationship like a family, because it's a very special relationship. So it takes some time, and I think everyone should take some time to get used to people in the desert, especially if you don't think you're going to go into the desert alone. You should get to know the people you're walking with and kind of find your people. Because when you get into the Sierra, or at least in the beginning, if you don't feel super secure in yourself and you aren't working with people with immense experience, you can't just drop someone on a random day just because you don't feel like this is working anymore. You have to stick with that person till you're through, if that's a week, if that's 3 days. And we were thankfully a big family going into the Sierra, so we had options to split up the group into different paces once we saw that people weren't really compatible. We had some new hikers who were just joining us out of KMS that we'd never hiked with before. And it only took a couple of days with hiking to see that this wasn't working out at all. They had a completely different pace, they had completely different experiences and experience levels. So thankfully, we were in a bigger group that could split up. But I know for me, I would never had enough food going out into Bishop if I would have stuck with that pace. So really get to know the people you're walking with once you're entering this year. I think it's very important.
Yeah,
yeah.
a tremoli, a tremoli is a compromise. There's no way around it, right? Like it's a relationship like any other family, and you're compromising to be a part of that tremoli. You get things from it and you give things to it. So sometimes you get companionship or you get extra resources, but you have to give a little bit of pace. Maybe you're walking faster than you want to or slower than you want to. So just keep in mind that it's a compromise. At some point, you might not want to do that compromise anymore. And that's fine. You excuse yourself or you ask someone else to leave. Um, but while you're in that tremoli, it is a compromise, and you have to be willing to give those compromises to get the things that you're getting back from it. And it has to be okay. And then one day it's not okay. You just have to realize that and kind of hike your own hike again and find a new tremoli and a new compromise.
Well, I've got a couple of points that I wanted to point out. I think the way that Drillbit and Mario dealt with their situation was a very mature way of doing it. And I'm not sure if everybody else has heard stories, but I certainly have heard stories of, two hikers go in and one hiker's like, see ya, and leaves the second hiker pretty much stranded without any food or whatever on their own kind of thing. And so we've heard those stories. And so what you guys have all described were mature ways to deal with a difficult situation, as opposed to just taking the immature way and getting out of that situation without any kind of explanation or respect to whoever you're hiking with. So I wanted to definitely point that out to 2026 hikers, that there's definitely good ways and bad ways to handle things, but there's not really any clear-cut answers. Most of them are going to be difficult. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was we're also our main topic, I think, that we are all talking about are these personal boundaries, and how much intrusion into your personal boundaries can you accept without giving up too much of yourself to whatever the tramily or the cause. And so I think hikers should have reasonable understanding of their own personal boundaries and know what their hike is worth to them, so that they can share parts of that they're willing to share with other people, and then also be able to go, okay, I'm not willing to share this part. This is this is going to risk my own safety, and I'm not going to share that part with the rest of with people that I don't want to risk my safety with. Um, so there is some boundary setting that you can practice as you proceed um, through the trail. And what I mean by that is some of those personal boundaries start way in campo in Cleef, where you try to decide who you're going to hike with and who you're not going to hike with. A lot of hiking is, I think, is muscle memory. So I was in a discussion with someone who uh was basically, this actually goes into the way you guys river cross, because as soon as I saw you guys on Instagram crossing the rivers, I was like, oh, they're gonna get hell for that, because you guys had your packs on very tight. And I can see that from far, and that's exactly how I would wear my backpack if I was doing a river crossing, certainly a river crossing that was pretty severe, which is what I was watching you guys do. Um, is to have my backpack on me. However, I had another gentleman saying, "Oh yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have a tight backpack." And I was like, "No, I travel with a pretty when I ski patrol, I my vest itself is 25 to 35 pounds. And then when I put a trauma pack on, that's an additional 60 pounds. The last thing I want is for that to be swinging around loosely while I'm trying to balance on a snowboard to someone who's hurt. Um, and so I want that pack on me, but I also practice taking off the pack. I know exactly how to take off that pack. And so that I know not to get my buckles all tightened out, not to get my shirt tail mixed in with my buckles, to the point where I put it on so tight if I'm doing a river crossing that when I do unbuckle it, the buckles literally fly apart because they're on tight. And I want my backpack on me. So um, I developed those muscle memories way in Campo and in San Jacinto and going up Baden Powell. I I I have 700 miles of taking off my backpack and knowing what it feels like to take off my backpack by the time I get to the Sierra, so that I'm not a novice and I don't have to have a backpack that's swinging around on my back. So one of the things I wanted to emphasize to 2026 hikers is use all that time, the first 700 miles, to practice those muscle memory skills, so that those are just ROTE, rote movements, and well practiced and well honed skills, so that now you can add ice axe to your hand and having an ice axe in your hand isn't such a strange idea, because as I as I say, I don't even think about zipping up my pants when I go step outside or run an errand. It's just a normal thing. I don't think about where my car keys are, because my car keys, I grab my car keys before I leave the house. Um, those are just skills that you develop at the very beginning. And that includes also like personal boundaries. That you guys develop. Um, I would love for you guys to describe your river crossing routine, if any. Like what did you guys do when you went, okay, I'm gonna go cross this river? Mario or
For in the sections where I think towards was like after either before Levining or the section after Levining, when there were a lot of river crossings that were really high due to snowmelt. Mario and I mean Drillbit and I, we got intel from the group that was just ahead of us, and then based on that intel, we like took screenshots. And so and sometimes we got coordinates or screenshots of the map that where they, oh, and Lookout's here. He was in the group that was just ahead of us in the Sierra. So we got a lot of intel from them. And so Drillbit and I, we would take that intel, and whenever we get to that area, we would assess it ourselves still. Because we're on the shorter end in terms of height, we're like 5 feet, 5'1". we had to be pretty careful with where we crossed. And so we would scout out the entire area to make sure we find somewhere that we're comfortable with, somewhere with like lower water levels or slower flow. And we actually crossed, it was just us two, and we actually just crossed one by one instead of together, so that in case something happened, one of us could call for SOS. There would be no use if both of us got swept away. And so I think we wore packs, but we did unclip it when we were crossing, where it's like like where both our feet would be on the ground. We're not crossing over a log or something. And we would always make sure we have 3 points of contact with like our poles and one of our feet as we're moving. Uh, yeah, and so that worked out pretty well for us. And sometimes when we were crossing over logs, because that was the only option, we actually put on our crampons or micro spikes, and that actually helped a lot with grip on the logs and balance. And so that was kind of our tactic.
I forgot you told me about that. You were wearing your micro spikes when you were crossing the logs. Oh, well, we got Lookout in here. Lookout, please introduce yourself. You're still muted, Lookout. I don't know if I can I don't know if I can unmute you. You're still muted, Lookout.
I'll jump
Oh,
in
there
while
you go.
Val's trying to
Yeah,
figure
sorry.
it
Go
is.
on. Sorry, I was fiddling around with the settings on the phone. It took a while. But yeah, you go ahead. You were going to jump in. Go ahead.
I just wanted to give a big shout out to Mario. You did everything right. That's awesome. Like the number one thing when crossing those rivers is take your time. Take your time, do it right, go the long way, take the extra second, take the extra minute, don't rush it. You're going to be tempted to not want to put your micro spikes on to cross the log that has a little bit of ice on the top of it or is wet, but do it. Go put your bag down, pull the micro spikes out, put them on your shoes just so that you could literally walk like 50 yards over the log. All of that stuff is so important. And then when you're crossing the rivers, 3 points of contact at all times. And if that means you're going super slow and you're taking it one step at a time, that's what you're doing. Just prioritize safety and doing things right and doing things correctly and taking your time and it's fun. I mean, I wish right now I was waist deep in one of those rivers on the PCT with 3 points of contract. You know what I mean? Like talking to people behind me and in front of me. Like it's really it's super super fun. It's not a scary thing or a fear mongering thing. It's just take your time and do it right and enjoy it when you're in the middle of the river.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ugly Stick mentioned it. He's like, yeah, I carried that ice axe for 3 days. I only had to use it for 20 minutes, but I
That's
used
right.
it that was the 20 minutes I needed it. And
That's exactly right.
same thing with microspikes. You have microspikes for you carry it for 15, 20 miles, but you only needed it for eight yards, just to get that through that crux smooth. It's a kind of a painful situation, but every through hiker has to do it, has to make up that decision. Anyway, Lookout is here, so let's see if we can get Lookout to introduce himself and find out what year he went on.
Yeah, hey, my name's Lookout. I'm based in the UK. Um, done the Triple Crown, and my PCT year was 2023. Went through just ahead of Drillbit and Mario, and yeah, loved the Sierras, loved the snow. I think it was the defining point of my PCT hike was going through on the highest snow year on record and being able to experience 35 hiking days through the snow. It was wonderful.
So what we had discussed earlier were those literally those moments where you kind of just have to take a step back and think about your plan and see where basically uh uh pause in your planning and in your day to review everything so that you know that, okay, now I'm going to pull the trigger and head north. Um, and if you could walk us through any of those moments, and you certainly can have time to think about it because we can certainly talk about other things, but we had also talked about personal boundaries. And while Skeletor was gone, we were talking about building muscle memory in your day so that when you do get to the Sierra, you know, having a properly fitted pack is not such a strange thing. Knowing where your sleeping bag is, knowing where your SOS button is, knowing where your passport is not a strange thing anymore because you've developed 700 miles of muscle memory. So any times where you just kind of had to take a step back and go, okay, we're dropping.
Well, there's a couple that immediately spring to mind. One of them was I went through with a group of seven of us, and we were in Bishop, California. I think it was our first stint out of the San Juan, and there was a bridge that was down. It had received a lot of damage. It was all twisted and buckled, but nobody knew that. We just knew that the bridge was out, and it was going to be a case of, do we walk around, which would be a huge thing, or do we go for it and be the first team to go to this bridge? The risk of that is that you get to the bridge and it's sideways or it's not even there, and you have to trek back on yourself 3 days. Or there's the thing of, it's okay. It's doable. It's not perfect, but we can do it. We can go across it. And we had this team of seven. We sat down in the bar and we were debating it. And there were three of us that were saying, let's just go for it. And four were against it. And that's, the numbers are on the side. But the one thing that swayed it was one person said, I know this group. This group's too determined. It doesn't matter what the state of that bridge is when we get there. None of us are going to want to turn back, no matter how dangerous, no how high the water is. And that's when it came as a realization that our egos were going to take over in that moment, and we were probably going to put ourselves at risk rather than double back and on 3 days of hiking just to go back on ourselves to go around. So that was one where we stepped back and said, actually, we know our own personalities. Let's do what's the safest thing, and maybe someone else will go to that bridge and say, yeah, it's fine, we can cross it. It was a bit mangled. And then we were passing it. We would gone the PCT alternate route around it, and we saw pictures go up on a Facebook group of what it was like. And I think it was a team of 3 or 4 had gone and crossed it anyway. And they said it was like doing monkey bars, but with a 40-pound pack on your back. They said it was stupid, but they didn't want to double back once they got there. And they said they shouldn't have done it, but they did, because they didn't want to turn around. And that's when we knew we'd made the right decision, taking the safe route. Another one was where there was I think Stubblefield Creek had burst its banks and was about 8 or 9 feet deep. And we got to the edge of that, and we spent quite a lot of time walking up and down, and couldn't find anywhere to cross. And it was just a case of we had to swim it. So that was one where we took a step back and said, did we want to double back 4 days, or did we just want to get wet and cold and cross over to the other side? So that was one where we had to have a big team meeting about what we wanted to do, whether or not we wanted to swim an icy river or not. And we chose to swim it.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people are experienced enough to realize that flowing water is much, much, much colder than lake. So even if you're swimming in a frozen lake, uh, flowing water is much colder than just at a lake. So choosing to swim across a river, especially in a situation where I'm going to be cold at the other end, kind of thing, and I don't know if my clothes are going to be dry and all that. Did you guys do that on natural? Did you guys uh, keep all
Yeah,
your clothes
we
dry?
stripped down. So we put everything into our packs, and we, made them as watertight as possible, which was surprisingly watertight for the packs we were wearing. No, there was no sort of major leakage, and of course we were all had waterproof liners in the packs. And yeah, we were stripped down, and there's no sort of embarrassment. We're all doing it. And what we were really lucky is one of our group was a Swedish Royal Marine who does teach the winter survival courses to the Swedish Royal Marine. So he's very experienced, and he went in first, and he gave a step-by-step instructional whilst he was swimming across. um, it was funny to watch him do it and also be shouting instructions at the same time. And then he got to the opposite bank and then gave us step by step instructions as one at a time we went in and swam across. And exactly what you said about flowing water, a lake sits there, can bask in the sun, and heat up a couple of degrees, but flowing water doesn't have that luxury. So it just stays cold. And when you get into something like that, whether it's a knee deep river or you go fully immersed, it does knock the wind out of you. You sort of panic and you hold that breath in. And that can, if you're not used to it, that can set you back because you'll be trying to cross, if you, even if you're just wading across a cold flowing river, you're trying to cross, but your body's stiffening up. And the slightest slip of your foot can panic you. Um, my advice would be to look at the videos online. There's a lot of really good instructionals out there and testimonials. Go sideways if you can. It's not always doable to do it in groups, but yeah, as Skeletor said, any kind of prep that you can do, any kind of sort of just scouting the river for a place where it's not as violent or it's not as wide or whatever it is, to just get across the prep for it. You're not racing against time. There is no set limit of time that you can spend preparing for a river. But once you get washed away, once the worst happens, you'll be, you know, you would be praying that you'd spent 20 more minutes preparing, putting on your micro spikes or scouting for a better location, or maybe looking at the flow and saying, I need to watch out there. And once you're in, just taking your time. You're already wet. Just take your time and make sure that your feet are solid every time you move them.
Uh,
It really is, again, about safety is more about discipline than it is about preparation. You come to a river crossing, it looks a little sketchy. You know you're going to get in past your waist. Take your bag off. Look in your bag. Make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Make sure nothing's hanging off the side. Make sure everything is waterproof. Reseal it. Do all that. It takes an extra 10 or 15 minutes, but when your bag's floating down the river, you're going to be happy that you did it. And the real danger is like just being lazy. Is like, I'm just going to do this. I'm sure everything in my bag is fine. And then you forgot that your electronics bag had a little, wasn't properly sealed. And the next thing you know, all your electronics are completely soaked. So just, again, it's not about preparation as much as it is about discipline and patience and being doubly sure and triply sure. Also, shout out Hyperlight. Those Dyneema bags, when you roll them down, they're basically like little inner tubes. They float. They stay on top of the water and they give you like a little bit of like, you've got maybe like 60 or 90 seconds where you can like hold on to that thing and like kind of float across the river a little bit before the water really starts to seep in, even in the littlest bit. So those bags were they were super helpful when the water level was high.
Lookout, did you who was the what was the trail name of the guy that was swam across first? I think I have his video and I wanted to ask him for permission to use it so that I can show you guys. And also while we're at it, can you explain ferry angles or if anyone knows what our ferry angle is, they can explain it.
The gentleman who gave us the step-by-step instructionals was worth it. He doesn't have any form of social media, so the video would be on my channel, Adventure Together, if it's the one that you're thinking of. And that we've got the sort of daily vlogs from all the way through the Sierra, so that's one should be easy enough to find on there if you sort of Google the river crossing, swam across the river.
Uh,
The one,
I think it was
sorry,
I think it was the one where you guys used your packs as a kickboard. You blew up your packs, you
yes.
okay. And then
The packs themselves were buoyant. They didn't require any extra air. I mean, the things in them float. So the packs themselves, once they were tightly, sort of tightly sealed, the way the Skeletor was describing, and all the smaller bags inside, the electronics bags, the clothing bags, everything like that, it helped keep it buoyant. And you're 100% right. We had them out in front of us with our weight of the upper body, keeping our sort of chest and back and head out of the water, and then we were just kicking frog kicks to get across. What we had to do was we had to swim and aim for the opposite bank. So if we were starting on this bank and heading to the other one, we have to swim in this direction straight across, but know that the flow of the river is going to take us this way. So when we were planning our landing on the opposite side, we had to launch ourselves from much further up and swim across, and the flow of the river would take us and we'd land where we needed to. So you can't just spot, hey, I want to be here and swim in that direction because you'll end up further down the river. And in that moment where you've got so many things going on in your head, like I don't want to get in the water. I'm very cold as it is. I don't want to strip naked and swim. And what if my bag leaks? What if this? What if that? And all the other things you've got going on. Sometimes you can overlook, hey, I want to be here, and then just go for it like you would a normal walking crossing, and somehow end up 100 feet down the river trying to get out in the middle of the reeds or where there's a particularly high bank and there is no exit. So you got to keep that in mind. But there's so many things going on. It was really good to have somebody with us who knew all of these things and could take us through it so that we didn't have to think about it.
So that's a good point, and that's what Lookout was talking about was called a ferry angle. I don't like that these videos that I do are about me, but I am a swiftwater rescue instructor trainer, and so I have done a lot of these rescues both in real life and in practice. And we can go through several others that are not part of this Zoom meet, but we are talking about ferry angles and prepping. One thing that I do tell students, because I have felt it's called the mammalian dive reflex. When your face hits cold water, your muscles just stop working. Your brain is working. It's kind of a weird thing when you know that it's going to happen, but your face hits cold water and your head, your brain is saying, move your muscles, swim. And your muscles just stop moving. They don't react. And it only takes like 2 or 3 seconds, but those 2 or 3 seconds can be valuable if you certainly are not prepared to go downriver. So that's one of the things that I want to reiterate is splash water in your face before you go over, before you do a severe river crossing, or if you're going to swim across the river. Do what the Olympic swimmers and Olympic divers do. You see them right before their competition. They'll splash water on their face too. And those are professionals, right? The Olympians are professionals. And so if they're doing it, then we should be doing it too when we're entering cold water. Me personally, I think several of your alpine lake uh either drownings or near drownings is based on this phenomenon called the mammalian dive reflex. But in any case, let's go back to other thoughts as you go across a river, or before you do a crux move. What have you guys decided to prepare yourselves with? Um, anybody else have any instances, including Lookout as well, of other avenues where you just had to take a stop and like take a inventory of your preparation?
So same thing as what Mario said. That's what I also did. One other thing that I did was because I used to be a lifeguard, and then so even though I guarded in like an indoor pool, but we did learn about like beachfront and waterfront and stuff. So I was think so I got a life jacket, but not like a small enough one where I could just like put over my head, and then. So I did that for almost all the water crossing until I realized it kind of was too small, so I just put it on my bag. But the whole point of that was so if I do get swept away, I didn't want to be like caught in a rock underwater or something. I want somebody to find me. So then to have like a little flotation device, then somebody will find me. And then so yeah, that was the only reason for that. And then after all the water crossings, um, or actually before the water crossings, we took off our trousers just so we wouldn't get like just so our pants wouldn't be wet. And then we like kind of hiked up our shirts a bit and stuff. Um, and then we took off, I'm pretty sure we took off our socks and then so it's just our shoes. And then on the other side, like we took time to like wring out everything, like shake the water out of our shoes and stuff. Even though it was sunny, but then it can get cold like really fast. So then, yeah, those were just some things we took time doing as well.
Anybody else have
I
any
love the life jacket. I love the life jacket. I do because like again, you're not worried about weight or pack space, whatever. Like that's just one more like it's a very creative way of like, hey, this doesn't like as you were saying it, I thought to myself, why didn't I bring like a tiny little inflatable kids blow up ring? Right? That thing nothing and it packs down into nothing and then you just blow it up and it works so much better. Um, but yeah, that's it. That's a super good idea.
Yeah, I've gone whitewater rafting with these. They were from Poland, but they created a ferry angle with a stick and they floated the stick just like you would fly a kite.
Yep.
They used the
Yep.
stream as the wind, right? And they flew the kite across the river to behind a rock where it got caught behind a rock. And then with that string around that rock on the other side of the stream, they could send a heavier rope across. And then they had a freaking rope that would just go across the river. And then we walked uphill, upstream. And so now we had a zip line. And so now I don't want to go too far into that because I don't want 26ers to bring ropes into the river. But in any case, there's definitely some ingenuity involved and there's some creativity involved. And kudos to you for thinking about rescuers. It's like, oh, at least they're going to recover my body and they'll know exactly where it is. It'll be easy for them. Um, Anybody else have any input for entering the Sierra preparations for 2026 hikers?
I would say that one of the big surprises for me was just how my pack weight got increased by so much. I really didn't expect a pair of crampons and a bear container and a couple of other little bits and pieces to send my pack weight from about like 22, 23 pounds up to, the wrong side of 40 pounds. I think that's knowing that would have been uh, a bit more helpful. I weighed that thing on the scales at KMS, and I was just like, "Damn, is this what I have to carry for the next like 7 weeks or 5 weeks?" Sorry, but it was. It will increase. You'll be carrying a lot more. You'll be carrying a lot more food. You'll be carrying, a lot more equipment. Hopefully, you've got the right equipment with your ice axe, your crampons, microspikes. Um, I had microspikes on the whole way through. Um, it was very rarely that I wasn't wearing microspikes all day. I'm not quite sure if the conditions would warrant it this coming year. Um, that's all dependent. I haven't been looking at the snow reports, but for the year that Drillbit, Mario, and myself went through, it it really was snow was blanketing everything from KMS to Sonora Pass and beyond. So yeah, I personally, like I said, had the microspikes on the whole way through, and only really took them off when I had to swap them out for crampons. And um, so yeah, I when it got to the log crossings and things like that, I didn't have to stop to put them on. I was already wearing them.
Any parts on any of your guys' hikes where you saw something and you just kind of went, nah, I don't, I'm gonna keep on going, or you saw something and you said, I gotta pipe in there and I gotta stop them and like that's not the right way to do it, or hey, why don't you guys do it this way, or find a different way to approach a difficult situation.
I again,
I
my
think
Dodger.
again, then the Sierra was.
Oh, you got muted. Look out.
Oh, I thought Skeletor was going. Sorry. Yes, in the Sierra, there was a guy in there who hadn't brought any traction at all, and we just had to have a word with him and say, "You're gonna need to bail at Independence. You can't. You what you're going to be facing. You can't keep going just with your trekking, with your trail runners on." And they said, "No, no, I'll be fine. I've been fine so far." And it was a stop. No, you think you can wing it, but you can't. You've got to prepare yourself for this. I think there's a lot of people that have that attitude of yeah, that's for other people. I personally am going to be fine, but other people may need that stuff, but I won't. And it's those warnings and everything that we're all saying is there for a reason, is to keep you safe, and it's better to have it and not need it than the other way around.
Skeletor, did you have something to add to that?
I was gonna say almost the same thing. It's better to have it and not need it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and pack it, and if you never pull it out, well, then that's a mistake. That's fine, right? That's a
Um,
mis you packed more than you needed. Fine,
yeah.
but the other mistake is a lot worse.
Yeah. I think the best way I've heard it being said was John at Elevation Sierra. Um, who in Lone Pine, that basically says your ice axe and your microspikes are, treat them like they are seat belts and airbags to your car. If you don't need it, that's a good sign. That just means that you came prepared. Yeah, you don't drive home at night and go, I didn't need a seatbelt or I didn't need a airbags. And so therefore my next car is not going to have airbags or a seatbelt. It's a piece of safety gear that if you don't need, that's great. If you do need, it's right there and it's with you. So that's, I guess, my lecture point on gear. Um, but I am still a hike your own hike kind of guy. Um, so anyway, Anybody else have things to add on to that? We can give our little pause and try to think of other ways to support 2026ers. In the meantime, I just wanted to reiterate to the 2026ers while these guys are thinking of their stories to tell, is that yeah, really start at Campo with just start your hike mindfully. Start your hike knowing that you're learning things that will get you to Canada, um, and that those are muscle memory. Those are those are aspects that will bring you north. And so simple things like putting on or taking off your pack, simple things like knowing exactly where you put your SOS button, exactly where you put your tent poles, things like that will help you when you get further north and you're in challenging situations. You're like, oh yeah, I don't have to think about where my tent poles are because I know exactly where my tent poles are. I don't have to think about keeping my buckles untangled from my shirt tail because I know exactly that I always uh, buckle my hip belt um, without anything in the way or dangling in the way of my hip belt. I always know that my pack is packed tight so that things aren't flying off and floating downstream when I'm in the water. Things like that. Okay, back to stories.
I will let me start because I have to drop in about 2 or 3 minutes. But the last thing I'll say, like in closing, is to all the 2026 hikers, you're overthinking it. You're over planning it. You really are. This is not something to be afraid of. This is something to be excited about and to enjoy even the lead up of feeling that little bit of butterfly in your stomach. That's enjoy that. You don't get to do that many times in your life. So congratulations, you've already decided that you're going to do that, and that's awesome. Pack your safety gear, put it in your bag, worry a tiny bit less about how much it weighs, and leave Kennedy Meadow South and walk into the Sierra without thinking twice. There's a path. Thousands of people have done it before you. 99% of them have been less qualified and less ready. You're fine. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. And you're going to have stories to think about for the rest of your life.
And lifelong friends.
And lifelong friends, shout out Chirp, uh, shout out Trail Dad, shout out my friend Jeremy. Yeah, 70-pound hammer. Like you meet people out there that I still talk to years later to this very day.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I saw the clearest when going into the Sierra was um, people have very different experiences, and the reports you get from people ahead of you. I'm guessing most people won't be the first into the Sierra. So the reports you get from the people ahead of you, look at the actual facts of the situation because most of the time it's facts mixed with feelings. Um, the reports we got from the first people going in made it seem like I would have never come out of the Sierra. It was reports of near-death experiences and stuff like that, and that's their experiences. It's not necessarily applicable to you. So look at the pictures, look at the actual factual information they're coming with, and make your own decisions regarding your own level. And it looks so far like it's going to be a snowpack and snow level closer to last year and not 2023, thankfully. So for most people listening to this, there will be snow-free sections probably. I wore my micro spikes for most of the passes, but not days-long stretches at all. And I didn't even have to snow camp a single time. We pushed miles, so we managed to camp snow free basically every night. which is really nice. So it's going to be challenging if you enter early, but I think it's manageable for most people.
Drillbit.
Sorry, I missed it when you were talking. Are we giving like our last tips or something?
Well, it's up to you. We could continue to go on, but it sounds like we're kind of wrapping it up things. So I just didn't want to make you guys stay any longer since we've gone pretty good stuff. We've covered a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of good things too. I think for myself, it would be kind of like what Runner said, like to assess your own abilities, and then after that to really like believe in yourself. And because then even if there's a lot of, because then I guess like mostly for our year, there were a lot of people like sitting at home going like, no, the Sierra is too dangerous, but they're not actually like in the Sierra. So then you gotta actually assess the situation and actually assess like your own abilities and just believe in yourself and just try it out. And I think a lot of people might be stressing like what to pack. So I think like at least for myself, I swapped so much gear like throughout the entire trek that like what I had in the beginning, it was like completely different from what I had at the end. And then there's also like you put things in hiker boxes and you like pick up other things. So there's going to be lots of things that you swap in and out that, yeah. So don't stress too much on like what you need to pack. You can always just send stuff back as well and get rid of things.
Mario. Hmm.
Yeah, I think, prepare what you can, learn what you need to learn in terms of safety and things that will help you along the way. But you're spending, 4.5, 6 months on the trail, and along the way, you're definitely going to pick up new skills. You're going to gain more confidence, and you will figure out step by step what you need, what you don't need, what your abilities are, and how far you can push yourself. And I think it'll be the time of your life.
Look out. Hmm.
Yeah, to bear repeating everything everyone else has said, it's not quite as complicated as people think. I think it's a fear of the unknown. We don't have all the answers going into these things, so we want to ask questions about every last thing. But when you, like, from my experience of four long distance hiking trails, you go out and you think it's going to be this technical thing, and every day is going to be another challenge, but people quite quickly within a couple of days fall in with a group that they just love hanging out with and drinking with and chilling with, and it becomes just a big party that for a lot of people as they make their way through the trail. And it is the summer of your life for most people who just end up doing one. um, it's not as complicated, and it will be a lot of fun along the way with a few little challenges. But um, and it won't be, like Runner said, it won't be camping on snow every single night. It's not likely to be a massive snowpack, and yeah, it's not going to be this horrible challenge that you need to worry too much about. If you do need to camp on snow, there's ways of doing it, but it's not quite as cold as you think, as long as you have the right uh, padding and everything like that. And um, I think that you don't need to think that you're going to be, or you have to be super skilled. Uh, the difference between people who finish trails and people who haven't, for me, in my has been not the most skilled people going into it and the most knowledgeable. It's been who's been the most determined. In our year, there was a girl who was 19 and she'd never hiked on snow in her life, and she went through the Sierra as a group of three, and it was because she was determined to. She was determined to do everything right and safely and make sure that she didn't get injured or swept down a river. She took the time and she made it work for her. And yeah, like it's just proven that you don't have, we don't all have to be Andrew Skirker to get through these challenges. Go out there, have fun, and you will do. You'll have an amazing summer.
Yeah, thanks. And I love that both Mario and Drillbit mentioned that there are heights too, because I think a lot of people, especially shorter people, tend to like freak out and go, "Oh no!" So I'm really happy that you guys joined for that part of our talk, our conversation. Anybody else have anything to add? We don't have to close if we don't want to, but it's totally up to you guys. All right, well, then I will say my buys and also my I can't even tell you how stoked I am and how honored I am to get to talk to you guys again after all of your adventures and to like just reminisce back to those amazing moments where you guys were having such a great time. So anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm hoping that 2026 hikers are listening and paying attention to this, and hopefully they get something out of our conversation. And hopefully some of them are gonna be here next year and helping out 2027 hikers. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I there would be no way to actually express to you how much gratitude I feel for you guys having this conversation with me. Thank you.
Thank you. And also all the support that you give all the hikers. I think that's really great, like with all your bear can initiative and all that stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank
Thanks.
you for
Bye.
having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.